Welcome to another Growing in Grace podcast. Welcome to another Growing in Grace podcast. We're glad that you've joined us today. We love you, we appreciate you, and we love it when you like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. Let others know the benefit that this podcast is being to you and your family. And so today we have a special guest, Eric Jones, one of my brothers in the gospel in the Lord. And we have this conversation about marital fears. There are people who are afraid to get married. And how long have you been married?
Been married 3 years and a few months.
3 years and a few months. So how are you counting? Are you counting like the prisoner?
No,
The prisoner is counting.
I'm happily married.
Happily
3 years
married.
and 3 months.
Yes.
Almost 3 months.
So it's not a ball and chain.
No, sir.
Yeah,
No, sir.
yeah. All right. Very good. Very good. You know, some people they are married because, or they stay married because the Bible says to death. And that's why they are married and stay married. And so you're in it because you're in love.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
love.
I love my wife and I love the relationship that we have is the relationship we have has grown to be even more beautiful than when we first got married. So I'm excited to see where we're going. Actually.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. So you're not scared.
No, not anymore. I'll put it that way. Not anymore.
But you started out with a little fear.
Absolutely.
You started out with a little fear. And now
Absolutely.
to be transparent, I think I had a little fear before.
Right.
And fear is something that can be present when you have courage.
Right.
And you can have fear and not have courage, but you actually need, the way I see it, you actually need a little fear in order to be courageous.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So there's something that you got to overcome, and that's why you need the courage.
Absolutely.
And so people are oftentimes afraid to get married. They don't want to get married. You know, there may be some reasons for that. And maybe we can kind of dig into some of the reasons that you might have had. And, you know, and I had a few myself, but I'm 30 years in. And I can share with anybody who's got marital fears that it does get better. It starts out a certain way, but then it changes and changes, and it begins to be this. It ends up as something that it doesn't start out as.
Right.
So it can grow and get more beautiful, but it doesn't stay the same.
Right.
One of the things I think that people have said and is that, you mean to tell me I got to stay married to the same woman for the rest of my life?
Right.
But I can say this, that my wife of today, after about 30 years, is not the same woman I married 30 years ago.
Right. My wife,
and I am not the same guy or the same man that she married 30 years ago. We've changed over the time, and our marriage has had this thing where it's been ebbing and flowing and growing, and so yes, it's not the same all the time.
It's not, even after 3 years, our marriage, we're completely different.
Yeah.
We've learned each other more. I've learned some things that she doesn't like, some things she does like. And even some of my affections have changed. So, I mean, I understand small, because we're 3 years in, I understand a little bit about what you mean. Like, people, they change. They change over time.
Yes. So what are some of the fears that you started out with? So you're a young single man on the dating scene.
Right.
So you were in dating.
Right.
But there was a period of time where you weren't dating to get married. You was just out
Right.
there.
Trying to have
no God on your side.
No God on my side. Trying to have fun, basically. What I thought was fun.
Yeah.
And it was fun. So some people say, the world, you didn't have any fun or anything. I did have some fun, but it it wasn't what I needed. And I recognized that there was something greater that I was looking for. And that was actually one of the fears that I had, was the dating is not a big commitment. If you don't like somebody, okay, you break up, you go to somebody else.
Just ghost them, huh?
Yeah, you know, ghost, you don't text back, or you send a text saying, hey, you know, this not working, whatever. But in marriage, you know, I believe that marriage is forever, right? And so marriage is until death.
Yeah.
And that's what I believe. And so when we look at that commitment, a lot of people in your ear telling you, man, because I was 26 when I got married. So a lot of people saying, man, you're not even 30, you gonna get married? Like, you sure? Even married people are telling me this. So you start thinking about marriage, you have a different idea of what marriage is. And so that's one of the fears, is just like, this one person for your entire life or their life, and, you know, is that something that you're wanting to really do? And it shows just why you shouldn't be hanging around certain folks.
Yeah, because they were feeding those fears into you.
Yeah, because I didn't have it growing up. My parents had a great marriage. From what I saw, they happily married, no issues, never separated. And so for that to even come in my mind, had to be something from...
Somebody fed you that.
Somebody fed me that, right? And so I think a lot of fears come from people who maybe shouldn't be giving advice.
Yeah.
Are feeding into the single people, telling them this about marriage or that about marriage, where I should have been talking to somebody with experience, somebody with a holy perspective on what marriage was. I had that, but I didn't seek it.
Yes. It was available, but you was with the crowd that you probably shouldn't have been paying attention to.
Absolutely.
Some of your homeboys.
Absolutely.
Some of your peers.
Yeah.
Who sometimes, just be frank about some of our peers, sometimes they don't know more than what we know, and sometimes they know less.
Right. And they're trying to teach you, and it's like, you never been married. How you, you know, and so that was one of the main things that initially was a big hesitation for me, was, okay, you know, I know these people, and they telling me all this, how in the world, hearing what I just heard, am I going to go into a relationship for marriage? And so one thing I had to do is I had to get around different people who had different perspectives. I feel like a lot of times people talk about marriage, how it's just this horrible thing, and this it's so rough, and marriage is hard. You know, just about everybody says marriage is hard, but there weren't a lot of people saying that, oh, marriage is this beautiful thing. And it wasn't until like you really start having relationships with people in the church and leaning into the community that you start seeing these beautiful marriages outside of what I had growing up, right? And seeing that helped relieve some of the fear.
I see.
Absolutely.
And you began to think, well, you know, maybe I can have that too.
Right.
Maybe I can have that too.
Right. And maybe I want it.
Yeah.
Before.
There wasn't altogether a desire.
Right.
Because of what you had heard about marriage.
Right.
And then sometimes you have people who have not been married talking. Then you also have people who've got a bad situation and they talk.
Right.
You know, did you hear from some people that may not have had a good marriage and they're trying to, man, I wouldn't do this.
I'd wait 10 more years if I were you, and all. Yeah.
So you'd be 36 before you start a marriage.
Right.
And before you could even start to think about children, and you're at 36 now.
Right.
Okay.
And that's a message that is getting pushed. And if you wait, you'll have more options. You'll be more settled in your career. All these other things where really being married at 26 is kind of like, once you've been married, you see how a lot of that are lies.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And they're just telling you this because they think it's a bad idea because their situation.
Right.
But all of that, if you're not careful, it'll change your mindset, and your entire view of marriage will be skewed.
Yes. Like it's something to be avoided.
Right.
And that's what you see, and that's where you see that fear has gripped so many men,
Right.
and they avoid marriage, and they
Right.
avoid the commitment,
Right.
and the responsibility of marriage.
Yes.
Was that a fear that you had about the responsibility and being a provider, and
Yes.
your role as a husband, what that would look like?
Yes.
Can you speak on that particular fear,
Absolutely.
the responsibility fear?
Absolutely. So, my parents, they had a great marriage, and my dad really talked to me a lot about a spouse and just what it means to be a husband. And, a man is responsible for what happens in his house, right? And so whoever you bring into that house, you are responsible for. And so if, an example, let's just say my wife goes and spends up all the money and trash the house or does whatever, puts us in debt and all these things. Yes, she did that, but I'm responsible because that's my house, right? And so that's the way I was raised. And so looking at being the man of the house in that regard, yeah, when you're young, you're looking like, okay, how am I going to do this? And even another thing, my dad used to tell me, like, okay, if something happens, that woman, she's not calling her dad. She's not calling her mom or grandma, grandpa. She's calling you. She's depending on you. And dating, that don't happen when you're dating. That's exclusive.
It's no responsibility,
right?
You can have a good time, and then you can go to your house, and she go to hers, and it could be over at that.
Absolutely,
yeah.
And so that responsibility, and even when things are going bad, that I still have to be responsible for what happens, whether we're arguing, whether we're having a bad week or whatever. That for me was a concern. And so it made me very careful about who I would even consider to marry. Right? Even when I was dating my wife, in dating, some of that delayed us getting married.
So what do you mean, some of your fear?
Some of my fear delayed us getting married, even after dating, because I was concerned, and it wasn't anything that she was doing. It
was your concern of being able to handle that responsibility.
Being able to handle that responsibility. Like, okay, what type of man, when she's in trouble, who is she calling? It's me, but what type of man am I on the other line?
Yes.
So
to respond to the need.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And it was a concern because I was still trying to figure out. I was halfway in. I'm halfway in the church, halfway out. So there's that aspect of things. And so that commitment, it was big for me.
Yeah.
It was very big for me.
So with that, what did your commitment to God help you to make a commitment to marriage?
Absolutely. If I didn't make a commitment to God, I don't think I'd be married right now. I don't think I'd be married because the commitment takes a lot of other things off the table. If I'm committed to God, that dating that I was doing in the past is off the table.
Especially that type.
Type of dating is off the table.
Right.
It removes things. And some people view that as I'm trapped. Yeah. But it's really a freedom.
It's liberating.
It's a freedom to, okay, now I can, within these boundaries, I can do whatever that makes God happy. I'm free in this boundary. When you have all these options, it's almost like when you're trying to figure out what to eat. Yeah. It almost frustrates you trying to figure out. You got too many options, right? Yeah. And that's kind of what happened. So when I made that commitment, I started getting closer with God. My view of marriage started to change.
Yes.
And I recognized I need a wife.
Yes.
I need a wife. Because it's good for a man not to touch a woman.
Yes.
To avoid fornication. Yeah. Have your own wife.
Yes.
And once you make up in your mind, you don't want to date that way. If you were a fornicator, you don't want to be a fornicator. That is the next step. Yes. That's your option.
Right.
That's your option.
And that's God's provision. And I a brief testimony for me too is that I was young and I wanted to be right with God.
Right.
I wanted to be right with God. And to be right with God, I knew I couldn't have a girlfriend that I was touching.
Right.
And so something was driving me to say, I need a wife.
Exactly.
I need a wife.
Exactly.
And I married at 19.
Oh, wow.
And because I wanted to be right.
Yeah.
And I wanted a wife.
Right.
And I was a man.
Right.
You know?
And there was a desire in you.
God had put that in me, and He put it in the men to have that desire for a woman.
Right.
And that's okay. But it's good for a man not to touch a woman, but to avoid fornication, he should have a wife.
Right.
And when a man finds a wife, he finds a good thing and obtain favor of the Lord, not a girlfriend.
Right.
Not a girlfriend, a wife. That's different from just a woman.
It's different.
You know, I think sometimes people, I want me a woman. Yeah, maybe you want a wife.
Right.
Because that's different from just a woman or a girlfriend.
It is. It is. And then, I think that is something else. If you haven't made that commitment to God, it's another fear because you look at, I have all these options right now. And in holiness, you really, that's off the table. But when you're not trying to do the right thing, it's like, oh, how I'm going to give up all these women and all these things and commit to one.
Yeah.
And, from the start, you shouldn't even have had all these options.
Right.
There was really one option, but...
Yeah.
And another thing is a fear that I think a lot of men have is, I wouldn't even call it a fear. I would call it they're getting what they want before they've committed.
Right.
So the urge to get married isn't there.
It's less because they already have all the benefits.
They have all the benefits. And there's not as much of a drive. And so it's like, why would you get married? You're so young. And if you are keeping yourself, that's a different conversation than somebody who's out here dating and doing things that they're not supposed to do.
Right, that's true. Right.
And so that's that is, I don't know if I'll place that as a fear, but it is I think it's caused a wave of, what's the word I'm looking for? Just lack of interest. A lack of interest in the commitment. Because if you get everything without, it's like working a job, getting paid, and you ain't got to work. Yeah. It's like, you don't want to do that.
Yeah, I used an analogy not too long ago of you living in a house and you don't have a mortgage and they let you live there for free. Well, why would you get a mortgage?
Why would you get a mortgage?
Why would you get a mortgage?
You wouldn't. You wouldn't. So
you're living in the home of your dreams for free, and they let you do it, and they said that you can keep doing it as long as you like.
Right.
Well, why would you get a mortgage?
Right. Absolutely.
That would almost be crazy, wouldn't it?
I mean,
when you think of it like that.
Yeah.
So part of what's happening is. With the way people are living, it's causing people not to make those commitments because people are fornicating, just to be blunt about it. But when you think of marriage, you think of a responsibility whereby you have committed to do what God says. Right. And then you committed to bring a woman or wife or on the other side, a husband into the relationship between you and God.
Right.
And then that's going to make everything different.
Right.
It's going to make everything different. And the responsibility was the thing that we started out talking about. And God is a good God. Now you've been 3 years in. Right. Let's deal with this responsibility fear.
Yeah.
Has God provided for you?
Every time. Every time.
Yeah.
And he's actually provided in scenarios where it's like, okay, how am I going to do this? I think my biggest concern after it's like, okay, I made the commitment to God was the providing side of things. And I think 8 months into marriage, I got laid off, right? Company closed the entire department. And it's like, okay, what am I going to do? Like, I'm 8 months in marriage, haven't hit a year yet. I don't have a job, right? And so everything, all my concerns, it happened.
It's coming on you.
Came true, right? And I never lacked.
Yes.
I never lacked. I got another job. 3 months later, they got rid of that department. Never lacked. God provided. And he's put me in a position to not only provide for me, provide for her. And the fear, if you just trust God, there shouldn't be a fear because he's going to take care of you.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if you're not trusting in God, I can recognize why there's a fear of provision because you're not trusting in the provider, right?
Which is not you.
It's not really you in the first place.
Not you alone.
Not you alone. Right.
You know, and I can testify to that as well. He's always provided.
Every time.
With my children and each child provisions.
Yeah.
Each child provisions. Provisions, child. Well, I'm getting a raise. Well, is anybody pregnant?
You know what's funny? I got a raise. I think I got a raise a month ago, and my baby is due in 2 months.
There you go.
Right. So
there you go. He is the provider.
Right.
It's not so much about what you can do. Okay, well, when you look to God, well,
right.
And so really, you know, you look to God, and your wife looks to you.
Right.
That should be the direction.
Right.
That it goes in, where you look to God and your wife looks to you. And so the responsibility, financial responsibility, God got it.
Right.
And then even with the relational responsibility, that being the head, what about that? How's that come into focus? Did you have a fear of the submission and the being able to lead and be responsible in leading and your leadership and the submission and the cooperation? Did you have a fear like that?
Absolutely, because every man wants to be respected. Every man, whether they say it or not, they want respect. And so the worst scenario is marrying somebody and you don't get it, right? That's not the worst, but that's one of the worst ones that for myself anyway. And so that was a major concern is, okay, I'm making this commitment. It's till death. Who I choose is so important. So, you know, initially I wasn't necessarily looking for these traits. I was just enjoying the time that me and my wife were spending together and happy, you know. But it got to a point when I was like, okay, you know, I'm serious about marriage, where I would look at certain things to see how she is. Okay, how is she talking to her mom? How is she treating her grandma? How is she going in these scenarios? How is she responding to me if I say something? Whether we're mad or happy, how is that going? And if I see something I don't like and I say something about it, what happens after that? And so it changed because I knew what I was looking for. It changed the way I looked for it. So before it was just, oh, okay, this person looks good and I'm having fun. Now I'm looking, okay, is this a wife? Because I'm trying to follow. I need one, right? So, and I'm watching these things. And when I see what I'm looking for, it helps me to make that decision of, okay, I'm going to commit. And I also had, because sometimes people can so to speak, kind of dance before you. And then when they get behind you, they doing something different, right? And put on the front, right? And so I had to have spiritual counsel. I didn't know I needed it. And it was actually my wife's decision when we were dating to get spiritual counsel. But that actually helped take away some of my fears.
Don't you see?
Because, you know, speaking to my pastor, him telling me what his thoughts were about my wife, and him telling me things that I needed to know about marriage, about her, what I need to expect, and all these things from a spiritual eye help relieve some of that.
Some of those fears.
A lot of those fears. Even my fear of provision. Because I had a number in my mind. I said, I need this much saved before I even talk about marriage. And so that's what I was working toward. And I mean, a man should have some type of, job. He should have a job. He should have a place to stay. He should have these things. But it was overkill what I was looking for.
Big number, huh?
She probably thought we was never gonna get married. But in talking to him, it helped me have a different mindset about it.
Yes. I want to say something about that because sometimes people do think that they need these big numbers before they get married.
Yeah.
But here's the truth, though.
Yeah.
If you have the right character and your wife has the right character, you're going to build something together.
You will.
You're going to build something together.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to tell the truth and be transparent. When my wife and I got married, I was 19 and she was 21. We ain't hardly had nothing.
Right.
We just didn't.
Yeah.
We had each other.
Love.
But I tell you what we did was we started building something. We did.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes people are so afraid to start with without this big nest egg.
Right.
But the reality of it is that if you choose the right person, you can build something together.
Right.
If you choose the right person.
Right. And that's even another thing I hear is a lot of men saying, oh, this woman wants this. She's looking for somebody that wants this, or she wants that. You might be looking at the wrong woman. You what you're looking at might be wrong. Because a woman with character, she's not going to be all caught up in your provision only, right? She wants to see that, but she wants to see some other traits. And so I hear a lot of times like, man, these women, all they care about is somebody with money. And so in return, us men, that's what we try to focus and get. And that's what I try to do. And she never told me that's what she wanted. I just, like I said, people in your ear telling you things, man, marriage expensive, man. Like my wife, and so you gotta have somebody with some spiritual wisdom to help you. I would advise marriage counseling with a pastor, a spiritual leader, or even a spiritual mother to help guide you through that marriage. If you're thinking about getting married,
Guide you to the point of marriage.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would, because it, like I said, it helped me so much, and I didn't know I needed it. It was extremely helpful, and especially, where I got all these other things in my mind. I was still growing spiritually, so I wasn't claiming to have God's spirit at the time. So I needed somebody with God's spirit to help me see some things. Another thing I did was I spoke with her mom. Had a conversation with her mom.
Yes.
Her mom was very transparent and told me who she was. It told me, the pros and the cons. So, like, okay, this is what you're dealing with. Like, are you okay with dealing with that? And all these things helped me to make that decision. So I wasn't going in blind. I felt protected. I felt like God was pleased. I felt like I had spiritual protection. I got to meet her family. I saw how she responded and all this. So it wasn't a overnight decision. Yes. It was some time. Yeah.
One question about there's another fear that people have that's the to death do you part. Scenario. The death do you part. Did you have that? Did you have that anxiety or that fear?
Absolutely. Because that it's forever, and you don't truly know.
Well, at least until death.
It's until death. It's not forever, but it's until death, which is long. Well, hopefully long, right? So, I was very concerned about it because when you don't really know somebody fully until you live with them. You know them, you can see how they are and things, but some things you just don't see until you live with them. Right? And so early on, it's like, okay, I had these concerns, and then all these people telling me, oh, you like people that live with their boyfriend or girlfriend telling you all these things. And it's like, okay, I don't know. And this was early on. I don't know all this stuff about her. I'm going to be living with her till I die or till she dies. That concept was like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know if I'm ready for that. It was a concern.
Yeah.
It's a real concern. Yeah.
Well, here's what happens. When I got married, my grandfather told me, he said, all right, now, my name's Jeffries, and my wife was, her maiden name was Holmes. And he said, all right. He come over to our table. I remember at the reception. I remember this very well. He said, all right, now, the Holmes coming into the Jeffries coming in with the Holmes.
Right.
Now y'all got to learn one another.
Yeah.
And that was good sound words. Learn.
Right.
Learn. See, you don't go in like you know everything. You got to start learning.
Right.
And so I had to start learning my wife. My wife had to start learning me. And we actually began to become one because we began to become something different from what we were at first.
Right.
So I was Jeffrey, she was home, but now we're coming into a new Jeffries family.
Right.
A new branch.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, so that's a newness that comes about. And so the deaf do your part, like you were saying about, okay, she's got these things, she may have these habits. I mean, I like my toothpaste a certain way. When I get my toothpaste, I want it all at the top. She might squeeze it in the middle, and I might get upset, you know. But the thing about it is you'll learn how to overcome that.
Right.
See, whatever it is, you made a commitment to love her and cherish her and honor her. Sickness and in health and in the rich or poor, to death do you part.
Right.
Your commitment gonna take over.
Absolutely. And that's why it was a concern for me because this is a huge commitment.
Yeah.
And after getting counseling, one thing, the necessary tools. To, like how you saying, like to learn each other, the necessary tools. Okay, when we have these disagreements or when we have these things, I didn't feel helpless like I was going into a scenario, and I felt empowered when I went into the marriage because I knew that regardless, I'm gonna try to make it work, and I knew that on her end, regardless. She's going to try to make it work. And we're both going to do it in a way that honors God.
Yeah.
And if we're doing that and God is pleased, how can it not work?
Yeah.
Right? And so that is what helped me as well, her being in the church.
Yes.
Her being in the church.
Yeah.
And us having the same spiritual, what we believe in.
Yeah. So did y'all talk about divorce?
We did talk about divorce, but I feel like it was just, do you believe in divorce type of thing?
It wasn't a long conversation.
And we were laughing because it was like, I know you do, but it might have been after a message you told. It's like we just asked, I gotta ask. But we didn't believe in divorce, which was also helpful to know, like, okay, regardless, that is out.
Yeah. Because that's one of those fears. Is if the other person, if you believe that if you got a divorce, you couldn't marry somebody else, but your spouse believe that if they got a divorce, they can marry somebody else, then that can put you in a bad spot.
Very bad spot.
That can put you in a bad spot to where they might play the card because it makes it, whoever believes in divorce, that's the person that's the weak link.
Right.
They may use that card. And so whether you believe in it or not, if the other person believes in it, they may play that card at a time of contention.
Right.
Because
right.
in a marriage, there's going to be a time of contention.
That's right.
There's I'm not saying there might be.
It's going to be. It's going to happen. I don't care how much y'all love each other.
There's going to be a worse time.
Yeah.
It's not always going to be better.
Right.
There's going to, say better or worse.
Yeah. Worse.
There's going to be a worse.
Yeah.
There is a down. There's a valley.
Yeah.
There's peaks, but the reason why you have the peaks is because of the valley.
Right.
There's going to be some valley experiences, and if you believe, if it gets tough, I will get me somebody else. But then one of you don't believe that. The one that don't believe that, you'll be in a pickle.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes it's people who made those decisions, the main ones who telling you why you shouldn't get married. In reality, it's the breakdown of who you chose and the process that you went about in choosing somebody. And that's why it's important that me personally, I feel like you should really watch and look and not rush it, but see how this person is when they're angry, when they're happy, when y'all disagree, all of that. Because if you don't see these things and they saying, oh yeah, well, I don't do this, and you've never seen them angry, how would you know, right? And so you have to do some sort of vetting.
Yes.
Above, she looks so good.
That superficial stuff.
Yeah. And you should be attracted to your wife.
Yeah.
Because this is another thing my dad used to tell me. You don't want to roll over and not be happy at what you see. Because you got to see it every day. So you don't want to do that, but you don't want that to be the main reason why you make a decision either.
Yes.
And so that's that wisdom that I got really helped me in finding my spouse.
That's right. Well, that's good. And I tell you, I had some people that helped me as well. And like you said, you got to go beyond the superficial.
You have to.
You got to go beyond that. And sometimes people can miss out on a good wife. Just being concerned about the outward features only.
Yeah.
Because she didn't check all of those boxes.
Yeah.
And you could be missing out on a great spouse trying to check those. And then some women the same way. I've heard some women, I want tall, dark, and handsome. But then you got short. That short guy. Light skinned.
Right. You know something? What's funny
He's
is
short and light skinned. Maybe a little dumpy. I don't know. But
funny,
he got a good heart.
Yeah, people spend so much time on looks. Yeah. And some of those people, the first few years of marriage, that person gained so much weight, they don't even look like the person they married.
There you go.
So you can't spend all your time focused on that. Because it's fading and it can go.
It's going to change.
It's going to change.
Yeah. So it's got to be deeper than that.
Right.
It's got to be deeper than that. So, my wife and I, we did get into, well, what do you believe? And because sometimes a person will be in the same congregation with you and could be believing different things.
That's right.
I don't believe that. Pastor said, well, that's what he said, but I don't know if I don't see it like that.
Yeah.
You got that. And one of the things I did too is I asked questions. I like you. I had a talk with her mom, some of her siblings, and some other people who knew her, her pastor, and my grandfather. I said, what do you think? Because I'm going to be honest, I almost made a mistake. You probably heard me talk about that before, but I almost made a mistake. And I praise God that he helped me to see that before I went into that. But there's another thing that people have fears about, and what are some of the other fears that you know that people have fears about?
So, I think the submissive thing, I think a lot of men, even myself, have fears of, finding somebody who's submissive, right? And not somebody who's going to try to boss them around. And I feel like a lot of people, they get it, they date, right? And they find a few who are like that, and they just completely give up.
What do you mean? They find a few who are bossy?
They find a few
Women who kind of want to boss the man.
Right.
The men find a woman who wants to boss them.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes it could be where you're looking. It could be whatever. But I think, men just kind of, they give up because they've heard all these stories or because they've seen scenarios or whatever. But, if you really take the time and you really searching in the right places and not just superficial, but really looking at people for like, their heart and who they are and what they believe, you'll start to see some of those things that you're looking for. It's just, men are so visual. So if we see somebody that we are attracted to, a lot of times that's the person that we're assuming, like, oh yeah, I married this person. You don't know anything about them. But the girl that didn't catch you out the first time, maybe, who knows? You completely dismissed her. And she could have that spirit, that calm spirit, that submissive spirit that you're looking for. And I think a lot of men don't take the time to look at that. They just box all women in one category, and I think that's not the wisest thing to do. It's not the wisest thing to do. And I also think, like you said, getting help. Getting help, like not making that decision on your own.
Yeah.
Getting some advice,
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's good. So you happy?
I'm very happy.
So you had a little fear.
Yeah.
God bless you to overcome it.
Yeah.
And now you're 3 years into a happy marriage.
Yeah.
And so are you glad that you didn't wait till you got 36? Because you said some people try to use about 26.
Yeah.
And you got people telling you, wait 10 years.
Yeah. Telling me
telling you you're going to have better,
options.
You may have more options.
I may have more options, more
But do you know that the older you get, sometimes you have fewer options where people haven't already been married before?
Absolutely.
And that's some of the conversation I hear some now, is that especially some of the older people that maybe want to get married, and they start looking at people their age. They already been married before. They're out there trying to get married again, but they've been married before.
Wow. Yeah, and that's why I say you have people who don't have wisdom. They're just talking, and they're destroying the young people and messing up their minds. It's like, what if I would have taken that? I would have missed out on my blessing.
Yeah.
And going back to being married 3 years and being 26.
Yes.
Looking back at it, I actually wish I got married sooner. I wish I got married sooner because it would have been more time with my wife where we could have learned each other. We could have grown more. We could have had more kids or whatever. I wish that we actually got married sooner.
But your delay was because of your fears.
Right.
But your fears were unfounded.
Pointless.
And so that's what if we can help people to not allow the fears to rule them, but be courageous and also get the right counsel.
Right.
We're definitely not telling somebody to jump into a marriage.
Do not. No.
Definitely not saying that.
No.
But to be afraid of an appropriate marriage.
Yeah.
It seems like the enemy is trying to do a work on you.
Yeah.
And to keep you from something that would be good for you.
Right.
The Bible says that when a man finds a wife, he finds a good thing. A good thing, not a curse.
Yeah.
But a good thing, and obtain favor from the Lord.
Absolutely.
And so a marriage is beautiful. So if you haven't heard it before, you heard it here. You heard it here. You heard it now. It is beautiful.
Right.
And with all of the tribulation and the trials that comes with it, it's beautiful.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
It's work, but it's a good work.
Yeah.
It's a good work. It's just like parenting. It's work, but it's a good work. So marriage, I see it like that too.
Yeah.
I see it like that too. It's so wonderful to have a good marriage.
Right.
But a good marriage requires work, but you got to overcome your fears in order to get into one.
Absolutely. you got to overcome those fears, or you would never experience that good thing that God was talking about.
Yeah.
That good thing. And fear, like I said, it was such a concern for me, so many things that I delayed it years. I think me and my wife started dating, I think when I was 23. 23. And I really at 23, I had an idea, like, I'll probably marry this person. But look how much time was wasted. Some of it was in the vetting process, but so much time was wasted. In so much that when I knew that I was ready, we got engaged. We had a 1-month engagement. It wasn't a long engagement because I was ready.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that.
It was 1 month.
It was 1 month. That's right.
But once I realized that
because you had to waste 3 years.
I wasted 3 years. I'm like, I can't waste no more time.
Say, this is it.
It's it. Yeah. So absolutely. Don't let the fear of marriage stop you from experiencing that good thing.
Yeah. It didn't take me long to know.
Yeah.
It didn't take me long to know either. Sometimes you just come to that position of knowing.
Right.
You know.
Right.
When you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah.
But when you do, yeah. So, closing remarks.
Yeah, I would just say, for any man that is, whether you're thinking about married or whether you're not thinking about getting married, don't let that fear stop you. Don't let that fear stop you. Even in dating, I know that we have a lot of men who are reserved about holy dating. Reserved about holy dating.
Yes, because that's what we believe in.
We believe in holy dating.
Mm-hmm.
I would encourage you, if you're considering marriage, don't keep delaying. Don't keep waiting for God to drop that wife in your lap. Because that's not God's design. We have to go and find the wife, right? So don't let the fear of what everybody else is telling you hold you back from finding her.
Yeah.
Because, I did it, and I wish I didn't. And I wasted a lot of time doing that. So I would encourage any brother, it's a beautiful thing. I love being married. It's the second best relationship that I have outside of the one I have with God.
Yes. Yeah. Wonderful.
Yes,
and in fact, the one that you have with God helped you to come to that.
It did.
And so when we put God first, that's a wonderful thing. And he helps us and gives us courage and give us direction to help us to find that right one.
Right.
And so God is so good, and he helps us with our responsibility. Without him, we can do nothing.
Yeah.
So he is the ultimate provider. And so he'll help us with provisions for the wife. And then there's another side of this conversation, a wife wanting a woman wanting a husband. That's another, but we ain't no wives. So we're speaking from our perspective.
Right.
And so that's another conversation for a woman. But God is faithful.
Absolutely.
And he's a help. And we think about enduring the marriage unto death, and we believe that God will provide us with the resources, the tools, the community, the wisdom to be able to endure. and to learn and to develop into what he would have us to be for the spouse or for ourselves, and be what we need to be in the relationship so the relationship can be strong.
Right.
Because sometimes we're looking for the other person to be so much, but we need to be, we got to hold up on our side.
Right.
And then, just choosing wisely.
Yeah.
God is able to help in all of that. So, fear not. Or if you have some fears, I'm closing now, but if you do have some fears, have some courage.
Absolutely.
Have some courage. You need courage. So God is good, and you got two happily married men talking to you today. It will be okay so long as you put God first and allow Him to direct your path. May God bless you. May He help you in your quest if you're looking for a wife, or even you desire a husband. God is able to help in that desire. We hope that you come back to the next podcast. This is the Growing in Grace podcast. May God bless you, and may heaven smile upon you. Until the next podcast, come on back.